Hello, my name is Father Lawrence Jagfeld. I'm a Franciscan friar of the Sacred Heart Province and the administrator of CUSA, an apostolate of persons with chronic illness and/or disability. This particular Sunday, we celebrate the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time, the B cycle of the Lectionary. And after 5 weeks of John's Gospel, we return now to St. Mark's Gospel, which has been the Gospel designated for this cycle of the Lectionary. The readings for this particular Sunday hinge on two phrases or statements, one from the book of Deuteronomy and one from St. Mark's Gospel. In the book of Deuteronomy, we read that Moses told the people, "You shall not add to what I command you, nor subtract from it." Moses here is speaking of the commandments that came with the covenant of Sinai, the covenant in which God claimed Israel as his own people, and which gave the Israelite people the privilege of claiming God as their God. When Moses tells them that they should not add to or subtract from the covenant, he is asking them to adhere to the law, and that as long as they do adhere to the law, they will cling to the land which God is giving them. In the Gospel, we read that Jesus tells the Pharisees and scribes, "You disregard God's commandment, but cling to human tradition." As is often the case, when a law or a commandment is given, there's always an attempt to interpret it, to come to understand what it means, to try to apply it in a practical way to one's lifestyle. And for Israel, the Sinai covenant was interpreted, was applied, was a subject of reflection for many, many years. And literature grew up around the covenant, around the Torah, to explain it, to make it easy for people to apply it to their lives. But with time, those writings, those interpretations became more and more complex. So much so that there were traditions that grew up. The great tradition, or the tradition of the elders, stipulated that Israelites had to cleanse the objects that they used in preparing food, that they had to sprinkle the food when they got it home from the marketplace, and that before they sat down to eat, they were to wash their hands. Now, this was not a means of conveying some sort of rules of cleanliness. I mean, who among us did not have a mother who oftentimes asked us if we washed our hands before we sat down to the table? That's not what's going on here in the Gospel. What's going on is a criticism of the disciples because of whom they are associating with. The poor people, the people who lived in the countryside, the shepherds, the farmers, the peasants, the day laborers, those who worked in vineyards, they did not have the wherewithal to abide by this great tradition, this tradition of the elders. They couldn't provide for washing the implements which they cooked with. They could not provide for all of the ritual ablutions that were necessary according to the great tradition. And so it was that the rural poor were not able to keep these particular statutes, these particular laws. And because of this, the Pharisees regarded them in a very poor light. But these were the very people to whom Jesus preached. These were the very people with whom Jesus associated. And so the scribes and the Pharisees use this as a way of criticizing Jesus. Jesus, of course, has a ready reply to them. He recalls the fact that Moses told them not to add to or subtract from the law. He recalls the fact that Moses has laid down their way of life, and that it is not theirs to add to it, nor is it theirs to subtract from it. Jesus upholds the fact that he is there for the poor. So this gospel, rather than being a means of communicating some sort of cleanliness ritual, is really a way for Jesus to defend the lives of the poor, to defend the lives of the common folk. To be sure, this is still the mission of the church, to be with its people, to be with those who have not, to be with those who lack the means, to live in cities, to live in great luxury, to live according to social rules, social dictates, people who really have no place on the social roster. For more information about CUSA, please visit our website at www.cuson.org.